Good evening, everyone. This is Jeff with AstroScoop Deep Dive Astrology Coaching. How's everyone doing tonight? It is 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and it is September 14th, 2025. I'm glad I just got on. I changed the time to 7:45 because I was just having some technical difficulties. So we'll wait a few minutes to see if anyone else comes in, and then we'll go from there. So for any of you that are new to the channel or new to the live stream, or you see this on the replay, AstroScoop is Western astrology, and I talk about planets, the signs, planetary transits, aspects, and we look at all kinds of charts, celebrity charts, mostly famous people, but we can also look at event charts and then natal birth charts of any of you. And one of my specialties with astrology is compatibility, and that's becoming kind of a lost art, I notice, with astrologers. And I'm wondering if that's because sometimes you can buy these pre-written or pre-programmed compatibility sheets online, which can help if you want to find if you're compatible with someone for love or business, friendship, business, partnership. But you really need a live, unbiased, impersonal astrologer to give you those, to decode those clues, that sort of thing. So tonight last week was the full moon. This is the quarter moon tonight. And next week, we have the new moon at the very end of Virgo, almost Libra, on the 21st. And then we enter Libra on the 22nd. So we literally have 1 week left of Virgo. So we've talked about the first decan of Virgo. We've talked about the second decan of Virgo. And last week I talked about Virgo 3, the third decan, which were Virgos ruled by Mercury and co-ruled by Venus. So Mercury, Venus, and some of the stars that govern that period. And that the late Virgo period goes up and right up until about Thursday, which is the 18th. So again, today's the 14th, so we're still in late Virgo. And then we will talk about the Virgo Libra Cusp tonight. Love Cusp every month when we talk about the Cusp period. It's probably my favorite live stream to do, is talking about the cusps, because they're the most interesting and mysterious, and definitely very fascinating to look at cusp people, cusp charts, but also any planets that are cusp in your chart are always very, very, very interesting and give off a lot of information. So tonight we'll talk about the Virgo Libra Cusp and what that means. And we'll look at the cosmic chart, which is, my goodness, it is chock full of energy. There's just a ton of energy on there. And then if we have time, we can look at we'll also look at the new moon chart next week. New moon solar eclipse, 29 degrees of Virgo, and it's the International Day of Peace, which is interesting because that coincides with going right into Libra. So that makes sense. And I want to mention, if you sign in with your Google or YouTube account, please click subscribe on AstroScoop and then click all or personalized. So you'll get notified of these live streams and also of my videos that come up. So please make sure you sign in and click all or personalized. You'll either get all the notifications, or the personalized will decide based on what previous videos you've watched of mine, what future videos you'll get notified of. That's usually my favorite, and that's what I usually do with a lot of creators on YouTube. And then I'm getting maybe one notification a week or one every other 10 days or something. And I don't post that many videos, 1 to 2 a month, if I can even get to that, with all the live streams, which are weekly. So please don't forget to like and also comment. Now I want to make a comment. Someone asked me on here, is there a comment box or a link or something to click? So this is the live stream. The chat is right here. So, so I'm just saying, please comment here. So that's where you comment. You just comment in the chat, ask a question, comment, make a statement, whatever. But there's nowhere to comment until after. If you go back and watch the live replay, then it will be like a video where you'll be able to reply to me. But basically, you can just chat here, and then there's a comment. If I do a video, that's different. If I do a pre-recorded video, then you'll have the option to like it, thumbs it up, comment, share, obviously. You can do all that stuff. But you can go in the video, and then you can mention something, and I respond to all the comments. So I will read that. And those help me a lot. Please comment on my videos, even if it's critical. I really need more feedback on some of my videos to see where I want to go in the fall, winter, and even for next year. And I want to try to start doing some different kinds of videos. And I really, really want to get into more of the nitty-gritty of like compatibility between the signs and certain charts. So I would love to get like 2 different natal or birth charts from viewers. Ideally, a couple would be great. And then present that, look that up, and look at the potential compatibility or the potential struggles for those 2 charts as well. But one interesting part of compatibility is, I think we all assume that we want to be with someone, whether it's long-term, a partner, spouse, or a friend that we get along with well. Obviously, that's ideal. But there, in my opinion, there's more. If there is a little tension between 2 people, it can create a lot of growth and a lot of learning. So you need to butt heads, so to speak, a little bit with your spouse or family, friends, to achieve something substantial, I think. Now, it doesn't mean you go out of your way to, you have to pick your battles with people, right? That's so much of life. It's just picking your battles. And I'm learning that as I get older too. It's like, you can't battle people on everything, nor should you. And it's just, it's also a lot of, it's also can deplete you psychically as well, like a lot of psychic and soul energy by fighting things that, you're going against a brick wall sometimes with people about certain things. So you've got to move on. But we'll talk about the Virgo Libra Cusp tonight. And I see some new people came in. Welcome. And stick around, because we're going to look at the transits, talk about a couple celebrities, and we'll look at the new moon as well. And if any of you have comments about what you'd like me to talk about while we're going, please let me know. I think what I'm going to do is the first live stream of every month. So I'll probably start it in October, but I'll remind you guys and gals, next week is the first Sunday live stream will be a free-for-all. So I'll have a couple loose things I want to talk about, but then I'll open it up. Hopefully we can get 4 or 5 people like we just had, and then we can talk about different things that you want to hear about. If you want to ask a question about your chart, something simple. If you want something more complex, you would have to contact me for a chart interpretation, either by email or we could do a reading like over the phone even. So that sort of thing. But if you wanted something simple that's related to what we're talking about in the current astrological period, especially, would be good, please let me know. And we'll try to start that in October and do a little more free form freeform content. So today's the 14th, and it's interesting because so every month that we're in a sign in our natal chart, my natal chart, your natal chart, your friend's natal chart, your family, we all have these signs somewhere on a house cusp. So they reside, these signs reside somewhere in our chart. And sometimes they're on a house cusp, and then sometimes they're what's called intercepted. So if you have, let's say, Virgo right now, late Virgo energy intercepted in one of your houses, which means it's not on a house cusp, it's inside the house by degree, then your Virgo energy or your Virgo ability to analyze, criticize, uh, be sensible, possibly part of your work ethic would be hidden, a little more hidden and a little more dormant. So we all have Virgo energy somewhere in our chart, even if we're not Sun in Virgo, Moon in Virgo, or even Virgo rising. So if we don't have Virgo with our big three, we still have Virgo somewhere in our chart, and that's where we're going to have approach that area of life in a critical way, which can obviously be a pro or con. Critical thinking is good. Sensible thinking is good. You know, I watched a lot of reels and mini videos on Virgo this week to prepare for this live stream from other astrologers. And a lot of the Virgo analysis going around is quite intense. It's quite negative about Virgo, which obviously it's not fair to any sign to talk about. You're saying not 9 out of 10 traits are bad, one trait's good, sort of thing. So there's so much to look at in a chart, and a lot of it has to do with our maturity and our evolvement. None of us are completely evolved. None of us are completely mature. We're always growing and always learning. And it's never too late to reinvent yourself and to continue learning and feel, someone just, I was talking about happiness with an astrologer. And some people have the notion that if they feel strongly towards politics or towards anything in life, that I will be happy when, and then you fill in the blank. And any expert in the field of psychology or happiness will say you can't wait. There's no waiting on happiness. It's a journey. So you want to try to be as happy as you can naturally, not in a insincere way to yourself about being fake and saying everything's great, I'm happy, with weak affirmations, but to choose your happiness, or try to choose as much happiness as you can out of your day each day, and keep doing that. It's not easy, but it doesn't matter who the president is. It doesn't matter who your mayor is. It doesn't matter who the governor is in your state. You may or may not prefer that, and you may be, depending on what your values are, you may hate that, or you may love it, depending on certain laws or bills in your state. But you know what? That goes back to the beginning of time about many people in power and the elite people running the world. Not the elite people running the world do not care about you and I, the average citizen. So that you just have to accept that, because there's a much larger plan for a lot of for the majority of the people that run the world, that have the money and the reserves and the resources that run the world, like the billionaires. It's like the billionaires that give money to billionaires, like those people, like crazy money. So it just is. That doesn't mean you shouldn't be idealistic or shouldn't fight for what you want or try to change. But as I'm getting older, and who knows, maybe I'm getting a little crotchety or a little set in my ways. But it's about what my point was 10 minutes ago about hitting your head or hitting your fist against a brick wall. You're only going to get bruised and bruised knuckles. So again, pick your battles. pick your battles. And one thing I've learned about Virgo is I was thinking about, like, this whole month when I've been doing Virgo, I've been meditating on all the Virgo people that I've met in my life in any capacity, whether I worked with them, Virgos in my family, uh, Virgo people I dated. I had a Virgo friend when I was a child. I was his first friend when he moved to my neighborhood, and he remembered that, which is really thoughtful. He told someone that knew me about 20 years ago. He said, say hi to him. He was my first friend when I moved into his neighborhood. So I thought that was really sweet. And I wouldn't have, as a grown man, I wouldn't have thought that he would even remember that or even be that thoughtful. So that's just an example of Virgos can be critical and cutting and sarcastic. Uh, you know, Virgo energy can be almost dark when it's negative or insecure. But when it's secure and it's ripe, when Virgo's feeling secure and attended to and feels like they have a good life, the energy of Virgo is very pure. It's pure, like unlike any other sign, and that's what sets Virgo apart. The beauty of Virgo, or the pureness or precise quality of Virgo. That precision can be very sweet and thoughtful, or it can be cutting. So it depends on how the Virgo person views life, and then of course how they're treated, sort of thing. But Virgos born this week, which I talked about last week, are late Virgos, and they're very substantial, earthy, sensual Virgos in the Venus decadent, which would be a little hint of Taurus. So a hint of Taurus in the Virgo personality. So tonight, the Virgo Libra Cusp, which runs from the 19th to the 24th or 25th. So if you know anybody born, and I have one major family member born that week who is on the Virgo Libra Cusp. And the interesting thing about this cusp is, now we're the opposite cusp, which I'll talk about in a few minutes, is uh, Pisces, which is the opposite of Virgo, and Aries, which is the opposite of Libra. So that's obviously 6 months away. 12 months, we're halfway. So spring was 6 months ago. Can you believe that? Doesn't it feel like I was just talking about spring? It feels like that to me. But, spring was just 6 months ago. And on the 22nd, we're starting autumn, at least here in this hemisphere in the United States. So we're starting autumn in 8 days or 7.5 days. So, where is time going? And, how fast is it going? But this cusp is autumn. And obviously the opposite cusp, which ends Pisces and begins Aries, is spring. So you have two very powerful cusp periods that are equals in terms of light, light and dark and night and day, right? The hours, which is over the 6 months. So how right now we're losing, we lose every couple of days, we lose a minute or two of light. So now I think tonight was the first live stream where it was just getting dark right when I started. Probably hasn't been like that since March or April, probably, or maybe May. But so that's how long it takes. We're gaining, and then in the winter we'll start gaining light. Right now we're losing light, and then of course everything's moving towards being more inner, and the fall is that different energy. It's the autumn energy, which is sensation. It's more inner. It's not as inner as the winter, but it's the fall energy, the autumnal energy, which is Libra, Scorpio, and Sagittarius, moving into right before winter, is much different than the summer energy of Cancer, Leo, and then Virgo. And Virgo is an interesting position in the zodiac because it goes right up until fall, but it's still technically summer, but it's right in the middle of the zodiac. So we're exactly halfway through the zodiac, which is interesting. So Virgo Libra Cusp people born between the 19th and 24th. I said this last year in my live stream, and I probably said it in the video I did 2 years ago as well. There is undoubtedly some of the most beautiful people in the world. And I don't mean just physically, but there's also something in their aura, their physical presence that's beautiful. So, you know, beauty has a lot of different definitions. I don't mean just classic beauty, although the men and women born on this cusp, if you just look up a few, they are, you know, there's a lot of natural beauty there. Even for the women that don't have a lot of makeup on or their hair is kind of simple, and the men are both kind of masculine, but also kind of have, you know, more kind of chiseled or sculpted or kind of softer features as well, or even bird-like features. And so that combination of Virgo, the earth, and Libra, the air, is just beautiful. And the earth and air is sensation and thought. So now Virgo Libra people, so let's say a Virgo is born on, let's say a Virgo, September 19th Virgo. So someone born this week who has their birthday on Friday, they're still Virgo. They're really, really close, depending on their birth year. They're 2 or 3 days away from being a Libra, but they're still Virgo. So in their physical presence, in their face, you're going to see probably more Virgo features than you would Libra, because they're not Libra, but they're going to have some Libra traits. But it also depends on what they have rising. Now, if that Virgo person had Libra rising, then they would have a Venusian or a charming kind of, you know, graceful kind of facade to them. But if someone is September 23rd, almost any year in the last 100 years, they will be a very, very early Libra with Virgo traits. So they're probably going to have much more of a big smile, a toothy smile, which is indicative of Libra. Now, I know two friends we've had over the years that are both born September 23rd. One is born in the 70s, and the other gentleman, he's born in the 60s. So they're wildly different charts. But both of them have very similar facial structure, and they have a similar smile, kind of toothy smile, being September 23rd. So when I see them, it's clearly Libra energy, much more Libra energy than I'm seeing with a hint of Virgo. They are a little Virgoan in their personality, but physically in their bearing is definitely Libra. But again, if someone's September 19th or 20th, it's going to be more of that late Virgo energy with a touch of starting to sense kind of that charm and that beauty and that cool nature of Libra. So here we got cool cucumber customers here, Virgo Libra. And whether that's good or bad depends on what kind of a relationship you have with them. They can be superficial, and that doesn't mean that they are superficial in relationships. But the Virgo Libra cusp, the tendency is they are attracted to glitz. They like things that are a little glitzy, that are a little glamorous, but not in a Piscean way. Piscean is glamour and kind of like acting, but with Virgo and Libra, it's more like about the aesthetics, and it's more about the glitz and the shine and the aesthetics of anything that is pretty to look at in all forms, including people, nature, maybe jewelry, maybe things, you know, just maybe, I don't know, just technology, gadgets that are in different colors. Karen says, I have two friends born on the 19th and 24th. That's awesome. Thank you, Karen. And thank you. Oh, the crown looks good on you. Thank you for being number one. I appreciate it. That's great. That's really cool. Yeah, I really like, well, I'm biased because I have a family member on this cusp. That's part of the reason why I really, really like people on this cusp. But for most of the people that I've met on this cusp, I don't think I've coached anybody astrologically on this cusp in an official capacity. But I have been acquainted with, I've worked with people born this week, And like I said, we've known some friends. They are they have this kind of like they have this like gentle humor and smile, but it can also hide their critical nature as well. They're not as dry and critical as just a typical late Virgo would be, let's say born today. So if you knew someone born yesterday or today, they're later Virgo. They might be 22, 23 degrees of Virgo. They're over the hump and they're going towards the cusp, but they're still true Virgo, and they'd be Mercury and Venus. Now here on this cusp, we have Mercury rules Virgo and Venus rules Libra. So you also have Mercury and Venus. But because they're so close to Libra, they're going to have something about their personality and their physical appearance that will start to show some Libra qualities, kind of thing. And to circle back to my comment about beauty. So again, these people are not. That's not all classic physical beauty model or knockout or Hollywood glamour or whatever you might think of when you think of a beautiful person. Obviously, a lot of different things go into being a beautiful person. There's all sorts of things: our energy, our vibe, our thoughts, the way we carry ourselves, our values, all that. But Virgo Libra people are just naturally they're just like almost like dolls. They're just dolls, and you know they can absolutely, like, they can use their charm to get what they want, absolutely, just like a pure Libra can. But with Virgo and Libra, they're a little bit underhanded in a way. That doesn't mean that they're deceptive, but they do things in a little bit of an underhanded way, maybe not as direct, to kind of get what they want or get their needs met. And they are really good, I would say, for the most part, they're good team players. You know, there's a lot of cusps and a lot of signs that have certain strong qualities, right, that I talk about, that it's harder for them to be good team players. But here you have the work ethic of Virgo, and you have the harmonious nature of Libra, or at least seeking harmony in their environment. So that's kind of a nice thing. Now, what happens with the beauty and the fact that they're cool and can be superficial sometimes is they can live on the surface. So it's important for people born this week to develop themselves and not live so simply by their beauty and their wit and their talents, to where they don't develop themselves or they don't try too hard in life and they live just on the surface. Because that is, obviously in life, it's always good to develop yourself and find deeper meaning in things. And that's where the opposite cusp of Pisces Aries comes into play, which is spring. But the autumnal energy of going from, like, look at how different the energy feels just this week compared to even a couple weeks ago. It's still summer. It's still warm in most places. We've had some days here on the East Coast that have been very almost hot, but the energy's so different. And part of it is I can feel the Libra energy coming. And I can't wait to get to Libra, and I'll have to rewatch my videos from a year and 2 years ago. So I want to try to really do a fresh take on Libra this year, because I want to try to bring Libras out, because Libra is a very interesting sign, and it's Libra is one of these signs that just is in some ways very easy to figure out, in other ways they're not, and that sort of thing. But the Virgo Libra, the beauty, they have to find some kind of deeper meaning. If this person's Venus, so anyone born this week, if their Venus is in like a water sign, if it's in Scorpio, Cancer, or Pisces, that will instantly give them some more social and love depth, especially if it's in Cancer or Pisces. Scorpio's not as well placed, but it can still lend some depth. If their Mars is in a water sign, obviously for their energy and their exertion, that would be more watery and wouldn't be as cool-headed as Virgo or unemotional, and it wouldn't be as intellectual or cerebral as Libra. So wherever they're Virgo and Libra can definitely benefit from either a little fire in the chart to warm them up because they are very cool. It's a nice quality. It can be a low key quality also. They can they can um, they can kind of be unbothered by certain things because of their cool nature, which is a plus in many situations. But they need some fire to warm them up, and then either some water to give them some depth and uh, a little more feeling nature because of the earth and the air. So very, very important. Now, their Mercury, I know we've been talking about Mercury, Mercury, Mercury. Their Mercury placement is also very important because this Virgo Libra person, if they're a Virgo, they have a Mercury in Leo, Virgo, or Libra. If they are a Libra, born on the 24th, let's say, their Mercury's in Virgo, Libra, or Scorpio. So a Virgo cannot have Mercury in Scorpio, but a Libra person can on this cusp and still be on the same cusp. So I have known Libras born this week that have Mercury in Scorpio, and that changes the whole landscape of their thinking because that's a very secretive, intense, guarded kind of Mercury, which is and even though on the surface Scorpio is cool, underneath Scorpio is like a volcano. So a Mercury Scorpio person is not really that cool. Their feelings do influence their thoughts. So a Virgo Libra person, a Libra person on this cusp, if they had Mercury and Scorpio, that would be a real big influence for them. So definitely find deeper meaning and find challenges. Virgo Libra people they can be really good in like supporting roles at work. Like a Virgo Libra person would be like a great supporting actor or actress in your favorite movie or TV series. They're really, they're kind of like sensible, good friend. They're good at giving advice, kind of pleasant enough, kind of low key friendly. Um, Kind of thing. So they're good supporting actors and actresses, and they make good supporting people in at work and also in like community projects and stuff, and not as keen to being a leader per se, unless something else is there. So this is the fall. We're coming up with the fall or autumn. So if we look at the life cycle of astrology, so if we take 84 years, 12 signs times 7, is this fall people range from 42 to 63 years old. Now that's not literal. That doesn't mean I'm reading for people that are 42 to 63 now. I mean, it's just in the cycle of life, in the maturity of life, according to astrology, that where the Virgo Libra cusp starts is probably right around early 40s. And that is a big maturing time because at 28 to 30 is the first Saturn return, and then 35 to late 30s is the second Saturn cycle. And then at 42, 43, 44, you have another major Saturn cycle ending and a Uranus cycle. So the early to mid 40s is a big growing time for a lot of people. And if those people didn't grow up in their early 30s and they get to 41 or 42 and they're still not having grown up, life is going to knock them around a little bit with Saturn and Uranus and say, hey, we tried to do this 10 years ago. Now you're over 40, kind of thing. And then that really hits home when people turn 50, because 42, 43, then around 49, 50, 51 is another Saturn cycle ending. That's the last Saturn cycle before people in their late 50s or 60 get the Saturn return, their second Saturn return. So it's their last Saturn cycle in life before they hit their second Saturn return between like 58 and 60 or 61. So that's very interesting. And that's cycles, and it's social social versus personal. So the autumn energy is more inner, and it's a prelude to winter's inner energy of going kind of inner with all the creatures and everything, and the ground getting hard, and everything kind of freezing, stopping or slowing down. So there's more social consciousness with Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, and less personal. So these signs lend a less personal element to the chart. It doesn't mean they can't be personal, but they're more socially oriented, and the autumn energy is more about a little more about going inner and a little more about self-control rather than impulsively feeling emotions and kind of enjoying life sort of thing. But again, you got to take that with a grain of salt, and you have to look at very specific chart placements to things that will change this in certain charts. So you can equate a Virgo Libra person born on this cusp is the maturity is around early 40s or so. So it's obviously a more mature version of Virgo, and then it's coming up on early Libra, which will start on September 22nd, and then September 23rd next week is the first full day of just Libra, which we'll talk about. We'll talk about Libra energy soon, and that will be fun. And I'd like to get I haven't known that many Libra people in my life, and so I'm already mentally prepping for Libra. But if anybody sees this replay or anybody knows any Libra people, please suggest in the next week or two that they attend the live stream, and I would be more than happy to help them out with some Libra reading or some Libra energy, especially if they are Libra coming up, especially if they're born between the week of September 25th and the 2nd, which is going to be Libra. So that would be great if anybody sees that. So a couple different celebrities. One here is Nile Rodgers. Most people know him. He's from the group Chic that did Freak Out, disco group from the 70s and early 80s. And Nile is a kind of a prolific producer. He's worked with everybody. He's worked with David Bowie. He's worked with jazz people, funk people, soul, pop people, rock people. I mean, he's worked with Duran Duran from Britain. He's worked with so many people on a musician, as a contributor, as a musician, but very much as a producer, singer, songwriter, background vocalist. So Neil is like, he's like the prince of production, kind of. He just works with everybody. And that's another thing with people on this cusp. They they can be in the background and be okay with it. So they could be behind the scenes, maybe take some of the credit of the final product or the success behind the scenes, and not be necessarily showy about it, and not be as direct about it, or needing that necessarily the external validation as much. They definitely want to be appreciated, and they like a good appreciation, affirmation, thank you, but they're definitely, like I said, very, very good supporting people. So he obviously works with a lot. Another one is Candy Dulfer. Candy Dulfer is a jazz saxophonist. I think she's Norwegian, I believe. She's also worked with Niall, and I've seen her in concert a long time ago. She's excellent. Very, very beautiful woman, but her music's very beautiful. Kind of simple on the jazz side. It's kind of like modern jazz. It's not that complex, but nonetheless, really beautiful, good sense of the aesthetic, and it's good. It's good vibe, definitely good vibe, beautiful vibes. And let's see, and then the other one on this list is John Coltrane. I always mention him when I talk to anyone about Libra, and John was one of the main contributors to helping modern jazz music to come to the masses, one of many. And he had I believe he's a Libra, like he was a Libra on this side, on this cusp, but I believe he had Aries moon, which would be more of a pioneer, and then he had Pisces rising for the music. So that's interesting. So if a Virgo or Libra person this week has water rising, boy, that really gives them a whole different kind of vibe, especially when they can be kind of cool, a little detached sometimes, and then you have a strong water ascendant. Now, water ascendants are approach life with feeling, but it's not a planet in water. So that's not the same as feeling a planet in water. So if someone doesn't have any water planets, but they have water rising, they will approach life in a kind of a watery way, and others may see them as that emotional, watery kind of person, especially Scorpio risings. But I know John had the Pisces rising for the creativity. So, like I mentioned before, 6 months from now, March 19th to the 24th, is the Pisces Aries cusp, and that is spring. So that's the absolute opposite equals here of fall and spring. But that's why the cusp periods are so powerful. And I mentioned that last year as well, because you're not only dealing with the strengths and weaknesses of two signs, but you're dealing with the energy of the changing of the guard of the seasons with the night and day. So if you look at it from just the kind of a nature's perspective or a hemispheric perspective, that's kind of interesting. And Pisces and Aries, the Pisces Aries cusp, which is the very, very beginning, because Pisces ends the zodiac. So obviously when we get to the winter, we end with Pisces. But Pisces Aries is the very, very beginning, the most immature, youngest, cosmic astro energy. Whereas the Virgo Libra is, around 42. So think about that. That's kind of interesting too. So Virgo Libra would have more of a critical, more of an adult outlook critically, whereas the Pisces Aries person, if they're an adult, they could also have good critical thinking. But what's going to set them apart is that impulsiveness to enjoy life on a more impulse level, or a more raw level, or a more intuitive or emotional level, and not putting as much thought into the end result, or maybe even not too much thought even into what they're doing tomorrow, kind of thing. So when I watched some of the reels this week about Virgo, it talked about how Virgos differ from other signs, which is always interesting. And yeah, I don't know why there's just certain, it's interesting how there's just certain signs that people really, really speak so negative of time after time after time after time. And I know that you may have met 4, 5, 6, 7 people that were that sign. It is interesting how the signs do work. Now, I wouldn't, when it comes to the sun sign, which we're talking about here, sun in Virgo, it's more so the lack of balance in a Virgo person's chart that I think will bring out their weaknesses, or bring out their more negative carping and critical nature. It's more what they're lacking, not so much that they're Virgo. That's what I think. So if they're lacking water, they may be lacking a certain feeling nature to just have a certain enjoyment and feeling towards something. If they're lacking fire, they may lack a passion or a spark for life. They might like their life, and they might be like, yeah, life's fine, but they might not feel a spark, or they might not feel enthusiastic. So a lot of that, and also, again, this is always with the mutable signs, especially Virgo and Pisces, which can deal with self-esteem. That polarity can deal with self-esteem issues. So it's important for the Virgo person to find deeper meaning, so that they can have a good sense of self, and not just not just living on the surface with their wits, or their quick mind, or their critical thinking and their charm, but have something behind that, so that they feel more substantial. And they and they find deeper meaning, which will obviously give them, most likely will give them self-esteem, kind of thing. Now, not everything in life has to be super deep and profound, nor should everything just be superficial either. And it's funny, in life, you meet people that are kind of the extremes a lot of times. You meet people that are kind of live a really superficial life, and it's like, don't you want anything more out of life? And they're like, whatever. And then sometimes you meet people that are just so deep and so into certain things that they kind of like don't come up for air, and they're too serious or too focused in life. So, again, when we get to Libra, it's going to be all about, yep, you know the word I'm going to say, balance. It's all about balance with Libra. But wherever that Virgo is in your chart is going to be where we have the potential to be a great team player for work, have a great work ethic, and have a great ability to deliver on things, to just deliver. And whatever it is that we're doing, Virgo can just like stay the course in a quiet way and deliver the goods and get things done, do it very well, and possibly seek perfection, but do things as well as they want them to be. And it's rare that a secure Virgo doesn't do whatever it is they do, doesn't do it very well, because they wouldn't want to do something unless they do it very well, if not closer to perfect, kind of thing. So balance is key, especially with any cusp people of any month throughout the year. There's always an element of balance, even if you're not on a Libra cusp. So there's always that balance of the two signs, and you're always balancing the differing traits. So would let's say September 21st Virgo, they might say, I feel more like a Libra. They might say, hey, I don't know why, but I identify more with being a Libra. I'm not as critical. I'm more into harmony, sort of thing. Or a September 22nd person that's just might be barely Libra, like a baby born next week. The sun enters Libra at 2:19 p.m. next Monday. So if a baby's born next Monday afternoon or evening, he or she is a Libra, and they may grow up and they may say, hey, I'm a Libra, but I feel I really identify a lot with that Virgo part as well. So a lot of it is just balancing those differing traits. And Virgo and Libra together are critical and analytical in different ways. So they're both of those signs. And I know I mentioned this last year about finding out like kind of what's wrong in the environment, like looking in this room and seeing that, my curtain rod is askew, or the lighting, one light is brighter than the other, or, things like that, or, some of the books I have over there or whatever that maybe doesn't look balanced or look even. It's equilibrium. That's what Libra is. Virgo is finding like the little detail that's off, and Libra's seeing what in the environment is throwing off my equilibrium. Is it the energy? Is it person? Is it just the physicality of the environment? So that's where Virgo and Libra can be similar but different in terms of how they approach finding kind of what's off in their environment. But that's one of the biggest lessons, is to try for them to incorporate more of the Pisces, Aries, some of that warmth that planets in Aries and Pisces can muster and can express to people without a lot of overthinking or overthought, to just kind of express that warmth in a friendship or in a relationship. Because Virgo Libras can be they can be sensitive in their own way and very thoughtful, but not sensitive maybe sometimes not sufficiently sensitive where someone feels like, wow, I really do feel that emotion, or I feel that caring, like you might feel, from a Cancer or a Pisces planet, sort of thing. So Liam Gallagher is another Virgo Libra Cusp person. He's one of the brothers of Oasis from the UK. And if any of you are reading the headlines of all current music concerts this summer, Oasis has reformed from the 90s. They're back together, and apparently they're selling out enormous arenas around the world, and they're playing to something like, I don't know, 70 or 80,000 people per show. So that's amazing to me. And I should look at his chart and his brother Noel's chart, because the Gallagher brothers are a little older than me. Not sure which year they're born, but they're probably coming up on, they might be Saturn Aries natives, and Saturn is now in retrograde Pisces, but we're going to be going back to it. They must be coming up on their second Saturn return, because they're having a whole new life here as they approach 60. The brothers are having this whole new life. It's amazing. And they're a good group, but they're not the end all and be all in terms of music. So it's pretty amazing that they can draw that amount of people. So there must be some really, really good planetary energy helping them to attract all these people. Another person is Thomas Felton. He played Draco Malfoy from the Harry Potter movies. Now, I'm not a big Harry Potter person or expert. I have people in my family that are super into Harry Potter, and they've read all the books. They know all the movies and everything. But I wanted to mention him because that part that he plays, and I did see all the movies, is interesting because, you know, he's got that very clean, kind of handsome, beautiful look, but he's kind of mean. You know, he's kind of cold. He's kind of cutting of how he is to Harry and some of the other characters. So it's interesting that he can kind of be low key and smile, but it's kind of like with a little bit of a sharp, you know, little sharp pin, like a little ding, like a little sharp pin. So that's something that Virgos can really put into their music or their art or their acting is a sharpness. They can do that. And I think they can muster that even if they're not like that in real life. They can use that. They can use that Mercury sharpness to, you know, get, no pun intended, get their point across, so to speak. So Thomas Felton, very interesting. And then another one is David Coverdale. He is I think he's retired now, but he's the lead singer from a rock group named Whitesnake from Britain. And he's also in other groups. But David has a very kind of androgynous look to him. He's got long hair. He's masculine, but he's got kind of feminine hair. He's got the whole kind of glamorous, glitzy rock look. I wrote Nile here again. I'm not sure. I wrote Nile twice, so we already talked about Nile. But David Coverdale definitely has a certain sensuous and sensual approach where I can see a hint of the Libra as well. All right, so I wanted to talk about the inconjuncts to this, so the wild cards to this cusp. So if you know someone that's born on the Virgo Libra cusp, what are the cusps that are wild cards for getting along with other people? Well, there's basically two. One is the Aquarius Pisces cusp. Aquarius and Virgo are inconjunct, as are Libra and Pisces. And then the second one is the Aries Taurus cusp. Virgo and Aries, and Libra and Taurus. So those signs don't share an element, and they're both different qualities, whether it's cardinal, fixed, or mutable. So they're vastly different, and they require, because of the tension, they require a lot of adjustment. So a Virgo Libra person born this week getting along with an Aquarius Pisces cusp person, which would be like a February 19th, February 20th, 21st, 22nd, 23rd, is interesting because you have earth, air, and then here you have air and water. So again, much different. The Aquarius Pisces person doesn't have a earth or a sensation, sensual kind of earthy way of approaching life, whereas the Aquarius is detached and Pisces is more attached and more emotional. So it's kind of interesting because Virgo and Aquarius can kind of understand each other, but they're so different from each other that they almost cancel. It's almost like they cancel each other out. Virgo and Aquarius. It's like it's almost like they're not going to fight at all, but they're not going to have a really strong connection either. And usually, and also in matters of the heart, there's not going to be a strong connection usually with Virgo, Libra, or Aquarius, Pisces in matters of the heart, unless there's other strong Venus-Mars connections there, generally speaking. And then for the Aries, Taurus cusp person, Virgo and Aries, again, not really understanding each other, totally different approaches in relationships. Virgo is kind of hot. Aries is hot and impulsive. And Virgo is cool and not impulsive and not overly emotional, and not overly direct. And then the Taurus part is Earth. So that's somewhat compatible with the Virgo part. But the Taurus and the Libra part are in conjunct. And Libra and Taurus cancel each other out. Although they're both ruled by Venus, they appreciate each other's beauty and beauty in life. But they also have wildly different goals in relationships. You really have to look to that person's Venus if you're going to look at. But those are two cusps. Obviously, there's other cusps. But those are the two main cusps that are in conjunct the Virgo Libra person and can be a wild card getting along. It doesn't mean it can't work. And the in conjunct also creates a kind of a weird vibe between the signs. So that's why I say cancel out. The weird vibe can kind of go nowhere. And again, it might not be like really bad or negative or fighting, but it might not really come to fruition or accomplish anything either. So maybe those types of things might be easier as like a co-worker, or maybe a co-community member on a board or something in your town, and doing something with a common theme or a common cause with a group or something. That would be more so than a personal relationship or marriage. But again, there's a lot of very specific things astrologers we look at in charts when we look at deep compatibility for the long term. Some compatibility with people is short term, is less than a year, might be even 3 months. Some is like shorter term, 1 to 3 years, maybe then it burns out. And then you have the 5, 10, 15, 20-year relationships and marriages that have enough. There's enough there to make the long term. Doesn't mean it's all roses, but there's enough there, enough cohesion, maybe in sharing of values, that you can kind of go the longer term. But Virgo Libra cusp people, obviously, it's the cusp of beauty. Look some of these people up between, born in the last week of September. It's, I think Sophia Loren, she's right around there. And there's just so many. So definitely there's something. And again, there's just a very natural, there's a very natural beauty, because Virgo is very natural, the maiden. So again, if Virgo Libra people find deeper meaning and don't just live on the surface, they will be a much more well-rounded person. And then they may not be susceptible to other people's, kind of more addictive things in life that are kind of glitzy and exciting or glamorous types of things. That can be very common. Addiction can be common with the Virgo Pisces polarity in some ways. The Virgo Pisces can be susceptible to addictions if they're not, well-rounded people, and they don't have a sufficient sense of themselves and who they are. And obviously the ability to just say no when they're serving others, or others are trying to take their energy, and they can just finally cut people off and say, no more kind of thing. Okay, so I'm going to try to share my screen. Please work. I've had some technical glitches, and it was stressing me out before, so hopefully, all right, let's see. All right, let's see here, view chart. That should be, all right. Okay, you can probably see this. All right, so here we have the event chart for tonight. This is September 14th, and all right, this is earlier. This one was from 6/26, and I'm not sure why I have Boston, Mass on there, but probably a chart that I looked up that had Boston previously, but East Coast. So here we have, so here's the late Virgo energy that I was talking about last week. The sun is at 22. Now, again, this is 7.5 days away from Libra. So this is not a cusp energy yet. And this Mercury in Virgo is direct. That will be in Libra very, very soon. So very soon, in 8 days, basically, let's see, when does, let's see. Okay, then we're going to have Mars. Okay, Mars is going to enter Scorpio as well. So we're Mars here. Mars late Libra. So we have a lot of changes. We're going to be leaving all this Virgo energy behind. There's still a little Venus in Leo, but that's going to be Venus in Virgo soon. These will be in Libra. And then Mars next week is going to go into Scorpio. So we're going to have very little, we have no Leo energy left. We'll have very, very little fire, almost no fire. And then we'll have the Mars going into Scorpio, which is obviously that's a very intense placement in any chart. And all this Pisces, that's this retrograde here, the node. And now, as you can see, now Saturn's gone back to 28 retrograde. So for anyone that has a late degree Pisces Saturn, which I've been talking about forever, they're finishing up their Saturn return. They've already finished it basically, but this is one last kind of tiny lesson where someone might come back into your life, or a situation from a year or 18 months ago might come back into your life to just release it or finish it. It doesn't mean anything major is going to happen in terms of a lesson. And Saturn might bring you a situation or person that is an archetype for that energy. You know, a lot of astrologers always say to clients that, oh, that's Saturn in Pisces, it's going to bring a lover back to you. You know, I mean, it could, but I mean, couldn't someone from your past just pop up kind of anytime as well? So, you know, there is randomness, but it usually does show in some kind of archetype. So it's not actually always literal, like with a ex-friend or ex-relationship partner coming back or showing interest in you. Again, it could just be an archetype of what you were doing when you were previously going through that Saturn return years ago. Where were you then? What was your situation? And what were your issues? What were you going through? Kind of thing. But we're going to have very, very little fire here. We're going to go to almost no fire after this Venus. So it's interesting because the energy seems quiet, right? It seems much quieter. Part of that is this reduction of fire sign energy. Here you don't have any major Sag. This Venus in Leo is almost done. It's getting to the late part. And of course, we only have now Neptune in Aries, and that's just an outer placement. So that is not major Aries for anyone, unless it's conjunct the early, like I've been talking about, the early Aries people, the equinox, spring equinox babies. They're early Aries, they're getting that Neptune conjunction, and then they'll get that Saturn conjunction again. But that fire is almost non-existent. And the air sign, which I've been talking about, we've had this Mercury is almost in Libra, which is going to trine Pluto and then trine Uranus. So I've been talking about this for months too. When are the air signs going to get a nice trine? So here we have that. We have Mars. Well, Mars is in Libra. It was a trine. But we're going to have Mercury, Uranus, and Pluto all in the air signs. And of course, Pluto and Uranus are retrograde, so it's not as powerful. But nonetheless, we'll have some good air energy to spread around for the next month or so with that trine. But there's a lot of configurations with each moon phase. Like last week, we were talking about the Sun in Virgo opposing the Pisces moon. Now this is the next quarter phase, which is Gemini almost Cancer, and because Sun and Gemini, Virgo and Gemini are square, then it will be the new moon in Virgo almost Libra. So next week's phase is kind of a little different depending on however many weeks throughout the year there's an overlap, because you know how some months you might get an extra paycheck or something. There might be 5 Wednesdays or 5 Fridays in one month. So that's part of the reason why the moon phase certain times of the year gets a little skewed, because of that extra half a degree or so. Let's see. And then of course, no Capricorn and no Taurus. So obviously this Uranus retrograde, it's right at 1 in Gemini, but we don't have that Uranus Taurus. So not a lot of strong. After we lose the Virgo energy, we're going to be really low. We're going to be very low on this Earth energy, with basically just Venus and Virgo coming. And then of course, we won't have any major Capricorn until December, when we enter Capricorn and we begin winter. So very, very interesting. I mean, it's kind of almost, this chart tonight almost kind of feels a little hollow to me. There's something about it that's kind of a little hollow or light, and that's okay. This would be a baby's chart that was born at 6:30 tonight, East Coast. He or she would have this chart, and that's another thing too. If you know anybody, any of your children, grandchildren, nephews, nieces, they're having babies, I could absolutely do an infant natal chart analysis, and I could give the new parents a lot of intuitive tips on what to expect with their baby in terms of the baby's energy, physical energy, baby's emotionality, other than just crying for its basic need, his or her basic needs, but try to decode some of the clues on what they can expect, especially when that baby being born now is 6 or 7, and that kid's personality is formed. Right around 7, their personality is formed. So when you observe 7 or 8-year-olds, they're very much themselves, but a 5 or 6-year-old is still, they're not a toddler anymore, but they're still forming. So they're a little more malleable and they're not quite themselves. But an 8-year-old, a 7.5 or 8-year-old is definitely themselves. There's no doubt about it. And then another half a turn from the Saturn. So around 10.5 or 11, you got you have a half a Saturn cycle for that kid. So around 10 or 11, you start to see that kid starting to push back and assert their independence, because they're moving in on the almost pre-teen territory, which is right before 14, and 14 is 2 cycles of 7, and that's a whole nother thing. So maybe we'll do a live stream. I'll look at some of the cycles, and we'll take some child examples, just examples of children that would be born a certain year, like 7, 10, 13, 16, that sort of thing, of what to expect. But yes, please keep that in mind. Even if you see this on the replay, I also can do any children or infant natal chart readings or analysis. Okay, and now I want to look at, let's see if I can find, I want to try to find the new moon chart, which will be September 21st, 1 week. All right, let me see if I can share that. Carolyn says, lovely analysis of a very complex cusp. Thank you. Yeah, it is. It absolutely is. No doubt it's complex. Okay. There we go. All right. All right, so you should be able to see that. So this is September 21st, 2025. So that's a week from today. And this is at 3:54 p.m. New York time, Eastern time. And we'll talk about this more next week. Obviously, I'm going to bring this up more next week. I just wanted to bring it up really quick. Starting to lose my voice here, so we'll wrap it up. But here you see the sun and moon at 29 of Virgo, which that doesn't happen often. I mean, that's basically almost Libra, but it's going to be this one last shot. So apparently this year nature wants some more babies to have more of a shot of Virgo. So if a baby's born next Sunday on the East Coast, at least this time zone, before 3 o'clock p.m., this is going to be a doozy. This doesn't feel as hollow to me as tonight's chart. This is quite a chart for a baby born next Sunday. And look at that Virgo energy, which is going to be gone in a flash the next day. And then next week, there's the Venus in Virgo. Still all this retrograde energy. Tons of retrograde. I mean, Pluto, the node, Saturn, Neptune, Uranus or Uranus. And then this Mars is almost Scorpio. So we'll talk more about that next week. Yeah, so again, so next week we'll talk about the new moon and Libra. So next week we'll basically done with Virgo. We'll mention a little bit of the new moon next week and what that means. And maybe I'll try to find some celebrities that are born under the new moon in Virgo specifically. See if I can find some, and we can talk about that. But don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. Make sure you sign in and click all or personalize and subscribe. I really appreciate it. And again, my live streams, I'm keeping them right now. Right now, let's keep them Sundays at 7:30 or 8 p.m. Every Sunday here on YouTube, AstroScoop 3801. You can also follow me on X, Astro_Scoop, or Instagram, AstroScoop7. So thank you so much. Happy birthday to all the Virgos. And we're coming up on Libra. So Libra people, it's going to be your time soon. So have a great week and stay safe.